Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, I am so glad you are able to join the show today under these circumstances of two inaugurations today, both of Donald Trump and his co-president and Elon Musk. And it was certainly clear who was prioritized today, Elon and his billionaire buddies with the front row seats. And with that symbolism in mind, how will you continue to do the excellent job you've done centering Elon Musk's corruption in an ever important conversation about battling back against corporate interest and the dark money that is so entrenched in our politics?
Yeah, I mean, Elon got his desk, I think, before anybody else got their desk or their
Hmm.
office in the White House. And so I think that it is important, especially for us that are Democrats, to not only make sure that we are constantly making it clear to the American people that our policy is always centered around them, but also make sure that we aren't just turning a blind eye to the bad actors and explaining why this is not a norm and explaining why this is tearing apart our democracy. I think that we have to do both things. So yeah, we're going to have to walk and chew gum, but as someone who serves on the oversight committee, where now the newly created Doge subcommittee, or as we like to call it, doggy committee, resides, I potentially will have an opportunity to oversee just some of the nonsense. And what we're going to see more of is what we saw today, which is an administration that will prioritize anyone that has billions or millions in the bank over the everyday people that went out there and decided that they would do everything that they could to put him into office. The reality is that this swearing in was literally only for the elites.
Hmm.
And so if you want to know which party is about elitism, it's this one. They wouldn't even allow for the jumbotrons to be on the mall so that people could go and at least be close to his cloth, so to speak, right? So I think that there's going to be more disappointments for those everyday working folk that really thought that this was a guy that was going to look out for them. But as I've stated over and over, he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. And so if you weren't, then I don't think that he understands your struggles.
He certainly does not. And you've hit the nail on the head in terms of describing the ridiculousness of this administration, but you brought up bad actors and nonsense. And so I want to talk about your role in this MAGA Congress, figuring out how you are going to combat some of those bad actors and a lot of that nonsense. And one in particular, one member of Congress made a statement today. I think the best way to describe this person would be a bleach blonde, bad built, butch body Congresswoman. And she said, when asked about the potential for unity in this Congress, something that I think we would want. I don't know how we can have unity with people who believe that Donald Trump is their God king. But she said that, talking about Democrats here, these people would line us up in front of a firing squad and kill us if they could. We know exactly who the Democrats are. Democrats, until you start writing big checks to Republicans and start voting Republican, then we can talk about unity. So with that mess of a message in mind, what are your thoughts on the potential for you to get your legislative priorities through this MAGA Congress? And will you be willing to work with them or really bail them out eventually when their incompetence catches up to them?
First of all, Georgia, do better. Do better. Oh
Please,
my God. Oh
please.
my God. Like, seriously, like, she's terrible. And here's the deal, I live in Texas. So, I mean, for me to call her out tells you a lot,
Hmm.
okay? Because I think that what makes this country great is the fact that you can come from different walks of life and you can have different opinions. And somehow the best policies are typically the policies that have really met in the middle where nobody was really happy, which meant that somebody, like each side, got something. She doesn't want that. She doesn't even believe in governance. This is somebody that wants to tear us down from within. And you really hit the nail on the head when you talked about when they need to be bailed out. Not
Hmm.
if they will need to be bailed out, but you understand that they will need to be bailed out. And no, I am not there for them. I mean, if you believe that you got a mandate, even though he won by less than a point
Hmm.
across the country, if you believe he has a mandate, even though you lost seats in the House, and but for North Carolina redrawing their lines to still more seats, it would be Speaker Hakeem Jeffries. If you believe that you have a mandate, then go and fulfill your mandate and get on the same page and get it done. But you don't need me to bring about harm to those in my community. And honestly, it's not just those in my community. As I've laid out, the only time I went viral in the ag committee was when I made it clear, as we were marking up the farm bill, that there are more people in rural America that need SNAP benefits than in urban America. So the idea that I am only fighting for my constituents when I show up to DC is just a farce. And I explained to my colleagues, and they had nothing to say because they know that these are the facts, that I was fighting harder for their constituents, the ones that for whatever reason keep sending them back, and they are the ones that are literally trying to take food out of the mouths of their constituents, and they will say all types of disparaging things about me. But at the end of the day, as a real Christian, I am the one that's looking out not only for the people that sent me to DC, but also for their constituents. It's the same reason that rural America has broadband right now. Because you know what? When Democrats are in control, they don't just look out for what is good for quote unquote Democrats. They look out for what is good for Americans. And rural broadband, it's not too many of us that are in rural America. But we knew that that provided educational opportunities, healthcare opportunities, job opportunities for our friends that are in rural America that keep sending people that don't want them to have nice things.
Congressman Jasmine Crockett, I don't know how you did it. You've got me fired up about the next 4 years fighting back. MAGA wants to point the finger. They can go ahead, but we are going to continue to make the point that they are corrupt and incompetent, and we will continue to deliver. I appreciate your voice in this fight. I appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much, and I look forward to speaking to you soon again.
Thanks.
We were so fortunate to have had Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett on the program, and of course, she had some choice words for Marjorie Taylor Greene, imploring Georgia to do better. But please, guys, and as well calling out Elon Musk, very fortunate to have had her on the show, and am so glad that Democrats are really stepping up right now, and you're probably seeing it across other YouTube channels that you are subscribed to, coming on and helping us build these new media platforms, making progressive media be able to fight back against this right-wing ecosystem that already exists, and that it is why it is so important that we continue to see members of Congress use these platforms that we are building and really build them together to push back and message about the mess that is going to be this MAGA majority. And of course, Congresswoman Crockett kind of nuking their plan to rely on Democrats over and over and over and over again to bail them out. That is not going to be happening. But of course, like I said, we have to be focusing on our messaging. And that is what was so stark and so really scary about what we saw from Donald Trump's inauguration today, with the room being lined with billionaires, but not just billionaires, tech CEOs, those owning the biggest messaging platforms in the world. And I want to hear more about that and its implication from our friends at MSNBC right here.
Watching this, we saw events at the Rotunda. We saw the second inaugural address of Donald J. Trump. We then saw the off-the-cuff remarks that he gave in Emancipation Hall, where he was fantasizing or talking about how cool it would be to strangle somebody, and was complaining about the January 6th committee, really back to very vintage Trump. We now see President Biden saying goodbye. What have you been thinking watching all this unfold?
During that second speech, I just kept thinking all of those tech billionaires, those tech magnates that were right behind him during the inauguration, closer than his incoming potential cabinet secretaries. I wonder what they're thinking now, right? Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, who was never a supporter of Donald Trump before, who was there, right? Even Bill Gates, who wasn't there, but in the last week said he met with Donald Trump and was so impressed. I'm wondering what those people were thinking about that second speech that Donald Trump gave. Of course, they weren't there. You know, he was flanked by Steve Scalise and Mike Johnson, who are, of course, going to applaud him. But those CEOs who are not just the richest people in the world, they're not just typical CEOs. They're not running, you know, Halliburton or Exxon or even Walmart. These are the people that run the biggest communications outlets in the world. And that is who Donald Trump is choosing to have closest to him. So what I'm thinking is, what are we actually going to see? What are we going to hear in the next 4 years, given their amount of control and how much they are now, I'm not going to say in his pocket, but very close to this president.
And what's dangerous or bad about that in terms of the rest of the country and our democracy?
Just pick one thing. Artificial intelligence is going to change almost every element of our daily lives in the next 5 to 10 years. Donald Trump has never had a position on something like this. And now these people who have huge interest, right? Sam Altman was there. Obviously, Elon Musk was there. Jeff Bezos. They are going to have a direct line into this president. And so remember, tomorrow marks 15 years since the Citizens United decision. What we need to pay attention to in the next 4 years, whose interests is this administration working for? Is it the American people? Remember, Donald Trump wants to take control of the Panama Canal because of China control, yet he's welcoming the TikTok CEO and that company back. TikTok, a Chinese-owned company.
Ari.
Well, on days like today, we think of what is and not what might be. There'll be many days to talk about what might be. I think what is, what we just witnessed, is the return of Donald Trump as much more of the establishment. When he came in 2016, he was the disruptor. He came in with fewer votes and a Republican Party that was still trying to figure this out. And today, the speech we witnessed, the people attending, who Stephanie was just educating us about, tech and business leaders, this is a swing at the establishment. And so he returns in certain forms as, yes, someone who has been convicted, someone who has been documented for certain activities and malfeasance in our system. That's part of our government system. But he also returns having won more votes and with those business leaders and others. So it doesn't sound like an aberration in the hall where he gave the speech. I do think over time people will have to assess the campaign promises, the agenda that is for the public versus himself. And so ultimately, if this was an election about the price of eggs and post-COVID adjustments and concerns about your life, and what you get in return is we're renaming the Gulf of Mexico, or we're personally profiting off cryptocurrency at the elite level, then the public and what I'm calling what might be will play out over time. But I was really struck by, in the visual that actually matched where the political economy and business class was him returning not as an aberration.
Whether it is the border, his purchase of Greenland, maybe Donald Trump's plot to invade and steal the Panama Canal, I don't know. Donald Trump wants to be controlling the narrative. He always wants to be controlling the narrative. And having the CEO of TikTok, having Mark Zuckerberg, having Elon Musk in his pocket will make that a lot easier. It's why we have to be even more focused on building this progressive media ecosystem, and why it is so important that we continue to do the work that we're doing every day and calling out Republicans. And you are such a big part of it. It really means the world to me. It is the reason why we were able to have Jasmine Crockett on the show today. And if you want to continue to support our work, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you're stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.